This is Sharon Beck at Brandman University, and here is my mobile application for DBT. Looking at this slide, how do you feel? I hope calm and peaceful. Some people struggle mightily to ever feel this calm, people with borderline personality disorder. I would like to present today on the use of a mobile app that utilizes dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, to treat borderline personality disorder. My innovation project will impact the issue of people with borderline personality disorder and their struggles to self-soothe. Inability to self-soothe is common in people with borderline personality disorder. This is a huge problem. There are 1.4% people in the United States every year have been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. If people with borderline were able to adequately soothe themselves, it would go a long way to ameliorate many of the symptoms of this miserable illness. I would like to spend the next several slides giving some background on borderline personality disorder before going on to discuss treatment and how my app for dialectical behavior therapy can be helpful to these patients. Borderline individuals are the psychological equivalents of third-degree burn patients. They simply have, so to speak, no emotional skin. Even the slightest touch or movement can create immense suffering. In addition to the prevalence of 1.4 in the United States population, borderline is more common in women than men. More 70% of people with borderline are women. 10% of psychiatric outpatients have borderline personality, 20% of inpatients. Up to 10% of all borderline patients have had suicide attempts that were successful. The rate of completed suicide is 50 times that of the general population. This slide gives us the diagnostic criteria for borderline personality in the DSM-4, and it is the same in the DSM-5. Really, when you're thinking of borderline, the important things to think of in terms of symptoms, all kinds of interpersonal problems, issues of abandonment, identity problems, extremely impulsive behavior, lots of experiences of suicide and self-mutilating behavior. These are people who have a really rough time getting through life. As I did my research for this project, one of the things that I found interesting and surprising was that they are beginning to realize that there are even brain changes in people with borderline personality disorder. Volumetric abnormalities of the hippocampus and frontal cortex are of major interest in the study of borderline, and you can pick them up in an MRI. What all this means is not clearly understood yet, but at least we are beginning to see that there's a biologic basis, structural abnormalities in the basis of this illness. I would be remiss if I didn't at least mention the financial cost of patients suffering from borderline personality disorder to any kind of medical system that's trying to treat them. Because they use huge amounts of resources over long periods of time with intermittent crises where they're hospitalized inpatient, often patients with BPD cost up to, it has been estimated, $25,000 a year in treatment costs for each patient. Over the years, people have been treated with all kinds of treatments for borderline personality disorder. There has been used traditional psychiatric psychoanalytic treatment, ECT, interpersonal therapies, object relations therapies, loads and loads of treatments. Nothing has been terribly successful. Oftentimes, in order to keep a borderline person stable, there's a need to do ongoing therapy that is more of a supportive nature for a very long time, which doesn't seem to take. I mean, my best way of thinking about borderline is you're filling up a hole with water, you keep pouring in water and it just keeps leaking out the bottom. That said, there is beginning to be a fair amount of treatment, evidence-based treatment, using dialectical behavior therapy that is helpful for people with borderline personality disorder. As I began to develop the idea of using an app for DBT to treat borderline patients, I found one that I liked, Cognitus DBT, and I consulted with several of my colleagues. These two are, on the left, Jeff Geiger, who is the manager of the Behavioral Health Services Mental Health Adult Program, and on the right is Colleen King, who is a case therapist with me in the, she's actually in the adolescent program. I chose Jeff because it seems to me that a manager would be needed to champion this kind of a project if it has any hope of success, and Colleen has been trained, as I have, with DBT, so she's an experienced user of DBT, and she also is extremely technologically, I don't know what you call it, she's very technologically sound. She knows what she's doing. I asked them these questions. Do you think the app would be useful to you either as a patient or practitioner? What do you see the role of mobile apps in the healthcare field? Do you see the app being useful when you are trying to teach patients to self-soothe? Do you envision the use of mobile apps as being able to extend the teaching capacity of the therapist? Do you envision the app as being a cost-effective way to extend services? Do you see ethical, social, or financial costs in using this app with patients? The manager was interested in the use of the app for extending patient education for those patients who have smartphones. He stated he could imagine mobile apps could have many different applications in the health field in addition to extending patient education, such as tracking patient moods, whether they've taken their medication, etc., and found the concept of cost-effectiveness appealing. He saw this app as being relevant to patients, but he did feel the app was not experiential enough to hold the interests of patients, especially when they're at a crisis point. And the clinician, Colleen, felt the idea of an app was a great one. She uses this particular app with patients, which I did not know. Her feeling is the app's too wordy, needs more immediate interactive functions, such as something to hear or something visually to see. The third person that collaborated with me on the use of the DBT app was a patient who I have seen for quite some time. She actually learned the DBT skills, did the actual Linehan skills course for a year, and she taught Northwestern medical students from a patient's point of view how useful DBT can be. So she's real skilled in the use of DBT. And her perception of the app was that it was another thing that she said she wished she'd had it when she was learning, but she also felt it needed more interactive function. This is the beginning of the DBT app, Cognitus DBT. It is a self-help, skill-based way of trying to help people with borderline personality. And what the app does is that it outlines and gives people prompts in using their skills that they've developed in taking a DBT course. This particular app is absolutely not to be used on its own. It probably wouldn't be very useful, but it can be quite useful to have something kind of like a little cheat sheet, a reminder for patients on what they need to use to self-soothe by having something in front of them. The DBT skills modules are mindfulness, emotional regulation, interpersonal relations, and distress tolerance. There are 4 different modules, and when you click on each of these modules, it reminds people of the various skills that they've learned in different parts, when they've taken the therapy class. It really is an extremely cognitive type of model of interaction, which helps people step back, get out of their feelings and into their thinking to help learn to soothe themselves. Why is this particular DBT app and this whole concept innovative? Well, because really what we're doing is providing a way for patients to instantly self-soothe with mobile technology. Most people have their cell phones with them in their pocket or their purse, and it certainly can be useful to someone who needs instant support to use an app that can soothe them and allow them to think quickly of some ideas that they could use to help themselves. One of the things that's going to need to occur in healthcare if reform is to happen is disruptive innovation. Disruptive innovation has been defined as a process or service which takes root initially by simple applications at the bottom of a market and then relentlessly moves upmarket, eventually displacing established competitors. And this is from Christensen in 2009. One of the factors involved in disruptive innovation is finding new ways to do things that are both clinically effective and cost effective. In addition to disruptive innovation, business models will need to change. In the current fee-for-service model of care that's currently practiced in the U.S., there's no incentive to do things as efficiently as possible. In fact, practitioners make more money for becoming less efficient. If capitation indeed becomes the normative business model instead of fee-for-service, anything that creates a more efficient system will be valued and will eventually replace the fee-for-service model. I cannot finish this presentation without at least acknowledging that there are a number of things that could be done to improve this app. Embedding clips of little videos in the app that would actually experientially allow someone to go through it and see something visual that would assist them would probably help people when they're in crisis. For example, saying here, let's think of a soothing vision, something you can imagine to soothe yourself, and having a picture of a beach with the sound of the beach rolling in. The patient that I spoke to thought that using, let's say, having people, in addition to the app on their phone, carry with them a little bottle of coconut oil. You could say to yourself, here I am on the beach, play a little clip of a beach, rub yourself with coconut oil, and that would use a number of senses. So there's all kinds of ways that this particular app could be improved, but at this point, I think the heart of the matter, in summary, keep calm and help people use their DBT skills. Thank you.